Because the truth of the matter is you're going to be available to your team if you have one. You're definitely going to be available to your partner. You're going to be available to your kids, and you're going to be available to your family. So when do you have time to be available to you? And we have to pencil that in just like we pencil everything else in our calendar. I think it's extremely important. Welcome to the Nurse Boss Shift. It's your girl, Dr. Kiiyonna Jones.
And I'm Christal P, the Beauty NP.
And Happy New Year, you guys. Is it New Year, New You? New Year, New You, 2024, you guys. All right, so we decided to do a special, right, New Year, New You, right? We could say new day, new you, new month, new you, any new hour, new you. You can make that change anytime, but this is a special episode, you guys, where we are just going to talk about the new year and what we have planned for ourselves personally from a business perspective, but then also for our business itself. Of course, you guys always know this is a casual conversation between Christal and I. It's very informal, but we will be kind of talking about like how we prepare and what we plan on doing and how we plan on growing as entrepreneurs for 2024. All right, Chris, we've been off for it's been about a month, right?
Yeah, I think we took a nice little break, much needed.
much needed break. And I really felt that it was it's weird. As an entrepreneur, I find that even this was the first time in at least a couple years where I really took a break. Now, it started out where I was like, I'm going to take a month off. I wanted the whole month of December. And then I started inching into December, and it ended up being 2 weeks, right? But what I found is that, and I really took off the 2 weeks. So I found that I was still working, but it wasn't work. It was like visionary work, which is where I like to be anyway. So it wasn't in the day to day, like putting out fires, but rather like, where do I want my business to go? Like, what is the direction? Like, what is the purpose? Like, am I still sticking with my core values? Like, I got time to think. So people around me, like my family, is like, are you working? And I'm like, well, you consider it work, but to be honest, it's not. It's something I enjoy. And I think we don't talk about it a lot, that as entrepreneurs, especially micro entrepreneurs like us, we have become our business is such a part of us, and it's like an extension of us. So I'm like, well, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, because this is actually enjoyable for me. Like, what was your December like? Were you actually not working? What were you doing?
Same. I took a break, and I didn't have many clients coming in, probably because I wasn't pushing marketing at the time. But it was a much needed break. I had my loyal clients coming in, getting their services done. But outside of that, I wasn't really petitioning for new clients. But it did give me time to sit and, like you said, kind of be the visionary, work on those, programs I want to bring out this year, work on the vision of where I see the business going this year. So I pretty much spent my last 2 weeks and probably the first week into January now on the fast that I'm doing for the new year, just kind of being able to get to the things that I didn't have time to, as far as the thinking things and the things that take my brain and my vision, and really sitting down thinking where I want things to go this year. And I'm still not 100% clear on that all the way, but much clearer than I was before. So that was kind of the end of my year too. And I appreciated that I had that time to be off and to think.
Yeah. And I think, being that it had been a couple of years since I've been able to do that, when I was planning for my 2024, all of a sudden 2024 kind of felt like it's flash. It's like I could see it and it's already over because I've planned it out. As you got, and those who are listening, who are watching us on YouTube, they can see I have like a calendar behind me. This is a 12-month calendar. And so being able to sit and like write out the dates of this and what I'm doing here. And like, I have a senior, my son, he's a senior now. And like, well, his graduation dates and like planning it out is like, whoa, I already see like where things are going to be by December of next year. I mean, of this year now. I already was able to see it. And I think there's a lot of value in being able to like plan out your year. I wasn't able to do that at the end of 2022 because at the end of 22, I had hired on a marketing agency, a sales agency, and I had to do the work to help onboard them versus this year it was like, okay, I got the time off. Like I can plan out my life and just kind of see the direction that I'm going, which is going to bring me to my next question for you. Are you a planner? Did you plan out 2024? Can you pinpoint where you're going to be on this day on August the 12th of 2024? Are you one of those type of business owners or what type of business owner are you?
Yes, for the most part, I am able to plan, and I was going to say what you saying when you plan out your next year, and you were saying it seems like it's already flashing. It also reminds you of how short time is because I remember we had planned things for True Savvy and the IV hydration last year, and it just seemed like we kept saying it feels like our year is up already because when you plan it, you realize how fast these things come up and how short the year is. But I do definitely try to plan different events that I want to go to, plan different events in the business that I want to have, and just plan strategic marketing events too around the year, around the dates and the months. Yeah. So I do try to plan as much as I possibly can the year before, which I've learned from you, which really helps to see the vision and kind of, and also with things, when it's early and things start getting too crammed, then I can kind of scale back versus being in it and feeling like things are all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because like, I'm not a planner at all, but if you are a business owner, if you don't have a plan, then you definitely plan to fail. Okay. If you fail to plan, you definitely plan to fail because you think you can do a million things. And when you start plotting it out and it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this. You got 30 things that's going to take a lot of time and you don't calculate that in your mind unless you see it on the calendar and it's just like, oh wait, I don't want to have a webinar here and then turn around and have the event here. Like I'm going to be tired. I'm going to be exhausted. So you start looking at things differently. And so for me, I used to have I can do anything. Like I can just go. And now I'm like, okay, I know if I'm doing a webinar on this day, I'm going to be tired. I'm usually mentally drained because I give so much on the webinar. We give so much on our webinar. So it's like, I know I don't want to have another webinar the next day because I'm barely gonna, like we had a webinar in December, Crystal and I, and first of all, you guys, this is kind of a side note. We have brought on a marketing agency and they're a great marketing agency. So it's no shade to them at all, but we are kind of mapping out a new webinar. And so the webinar was so long. It was like 3 hours.
It was 2 hours.
That is 45 minutes. And when you add the Q&A, it was 3 hours and Crystal and I were dead afterward. Like it was, you guys, when you are in the coaching space and you are truly, genuinely giving to your audience, you really don't realize how much I felt like I had worked two doubles, like for real. And when we got out and I kept texting Chris, like, dude, like it was 4 hours later. I'm like, man, I got PTSD from that webinar. and so it was just, we were there way longer. And many of you may not know, but a webinar should generally be about an hour of the webinar and then like 30 minutes of your pitching and your Q&A. So we doubled that time. And you guys, we were doing webinars all 2023. So we definitely should not have had a 3-hour webinar. So it was horrible. But the point is, you realize how draining it is. Did you just think, oh, that's only going to take 3 hours of my time? No. There's an emotional cost that goes along with these type of things, and you have to factor that in your business. And so when we were planning out, when I was planning out my 2024, I'm like, okay, where's the med spa webinar going to be? Where's the IV hydration webinar going to be? And like, do we really want to do a webinar a week like we were doing, or do we want to break that down a little bit? And so really just looking at our lives, like families, kids, vacations, special events. Like my daughter's having a baby, so she's due at the beginning of March. Thinking about that. My son's graduating from high school. Where is that going to be? Just thinking about all the things is so important when you're going through the planning process. And I don't think it's talked about enough, because everything is so instant on social media. Like, all you got to do is, and that's tell the steps, but like, how many small steps does it take to get to that point? And honestly, I felt really good setting up the year right, where I like, even down to my conferences, Christal and I, what conferences we're going to go to for our own personal development, we've been able to plan it out and realizing, like, even when I look at the calendar, it's like, okay, we're going here to this conference at this time. I probably am not going to want to get on a plane or go to anything for a couple months, because really, realistically, how am I going to digest the information from the conference if I turn around in 30 days and go to another conference on a different topic? Well, do you have a specific strategy when you're deciding on like what events you're going to attend, or how you're going to do your personal development? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, same with the traveling. Like last year, we did a lot of traveling.
Too much.
A lot of personal traveling plus business traveling. And I realized then, because it was coming off the heels of like COVID and having babies and not being able to get out. So like last year, I just wanted to do any and everything. And I noticed, that's not going to work either, because the same thing. It's like, okay, if I'm going out of town Thursday to Monday, well, I'm probably not going to get back into the swing of things till like Wednesday of next week. And what is that doing to my business? So you have to strategically look at that too. So the same is just by doing it and learning, you begin to learn what your boundaries are and also how much you can take. And like, okay, if I do get back from a trip, I might need full day to recover, because if I come back and get back into it, then I'm just going to feel drained that week. So kind of just learning from past experiences and just being in this entrepreneur space, what you can handle, learning how things do drain you, because you think like, oh, it's just a brunch. But again, giving of yourself, pouring into other people, sometimes is tiring. Although we love it, we still need to have that recoup time. So just trying to factor that into just factoring in time that it's going to take you to recover, and just kind of, with me just being, okay, my social meter is like up to here. I need a minute to just be by myself and kind of reflect and things like that. So I would say, as far as strategy, that would be my strategy. Just trying no longer to pack everything in, and also I learned this too. And because sometimes with the business, I had to learn, because seemingly you can have this free time, but it's not really free, because if I have to close my books and then I'm running to a dentist appointment on this day and a doctor's appointment on that day, and then something else on that day, I had to learn to put those into one day of the week. That I do things. So I'll just say yes to things immediately, not thinking of the other time that it takes to recover or to plan for that activity. So I think that's become a part of my strategy.
Yeah. And now. I remember I used to say, Christal, you need to put things on your calendar, because you just be like, oh, I forgot. Oh, I'm like, girl, you got to live by that calendar. You got to swear by that. And I used to do the same
look thing. At the calendar. It will be on my calendar, but you have to actually look at the calendar. See, a lot of times, I had nothing going on for the day. So in my head, like, I have nothing going on, but what about that one call that you scheduled that you forgot about, because it's only 20 minutes, but it's a very important call. So learning to actually look at the calendar every day to remind myself of what I have, and not just writing it on the calendar, but still trying to go by this brain. So that's definitely strategy.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think planning out, living by your calendar, like for me, if it's not on my calendar, it's not going to happen. Like I don't even, don't nobody, if I don't care what, if they ask me, can you, I'm like, either I'm sending them to my assistant, or if it's personal, I'm looking at my own calendar and I'm like, can I fit it in or not? And I really like to have my executive assistant handle that. just so that there won't be any overlap. Like if I book it and then I'm like, oh shoot, she already had something. I try not to touch it because I just don't want the problem. Okay. So I'm feeling like we are in agreement that, planning out is awesome. Realizing that there is an emotional cost when you're in business. I think a lot of people miss that. That one is huge. And factoring that in. I know last year I was at a very emotionally, I should say I was on E. I was under E. Emotionally and mentally at a certain point that I had to have that getaway where I went by myself for 4 days, and it was kind of like a reset, recharge for me. Do you put that into your planning? Do you have an emotional recharge, reset in your process for yourself? I'm not talking about when you go on family vacations, because a lot of times that takes a lot of work too for us.
Especially with little small children. But I can't say that I put it down as I plan it, but I do take my time. I am not afraid to take a day or to close off my calendar, to say I'm going to go sit at this restaurant or to go do something by myself. So I don't skimp on that, but probably putting it on my calendar, because there can be times where it does, life just happens and it's 2, 3, 4 months and I'm just feeling all crowded in the head, and I just need to journal some stuff or just sit for a second. So probably need to work more on putting it back on the calendar. But I do take my time when I feel that I need it, but probably making something regularly scheduled, just so I'm ensuring that I'm checking in and having those moments, even when I feel if I might not be in crisis, but I still need a moment to be able to sit and think. So I probably need to put that on my calendar.
Yeah, agree. Definitely what I did for this year is I put it in every quarter. I have 3 personal days both together, including a weekend. So that makes it 5 days where I will detach. And I have no idea what I'm doing, where I'm going. I don't even know, but it's important for me to let my team know. And then also for me to get myself trained to take time for myself. And because the truth of the matter is, you're going to be available to your team if you have one. You're definitely going to be available to your partner. You're going to be available to your kids, and you're going to be available to your family. So when do you have time to be available to you? And we have to pencil that in, just like we pencil everything else in our calendar. I think it's extremely important. And I'm looking forward to it. So now I'm like, all right. So I know in March that's my 5 days that I get for me. So, okay, I can work and do what I'm doing, but I get those days for me. And I don't even know what I'm going to do, Christal. I may be just doing I may be working on the business, but I'm not working in the business. I'm going to be doing the things that I enjoy, whatever that looks like in that moment. If it's a trip and I need that, it's what I'll take. If it's not that, and I just want to sit up and just get up when I want to and just work on my business for a couple hours because I enjoy it, then that's what I'm going to do too. Right. So I think that oftentimes, even if you're not an entrepreneur and you're an employee, we should create these habits. I wish I would have been doing this when I was working. Saying, okay, not just, I'm going to take my 2-week vacation for me to take a vacation, but when are you setting intention to work on you, to reset yourself? Especially in the positions that we are in, where we are giving so much to our patients. It's funny. We thought we were going to have this whole 2024, and we talked about planning the whole time. So I think, Christal, we're going to need a part 2, because we haven't even talked about goals yet.
That's true.
So we're gonna have to tap into a part 2, because we really want to just kind of talk to our listeners about our process and what we do to set ourselves up for success in 2024. So today we talked about planning, and I want to make sure I highlight our takeaways for our listeners on this. And one is, make sure you plan your year or your year. If you don't set a plan up, then you're going to just let life happen to you, and you don't have no control. And if you're anything like me, I don't like not having control. I want to control what happens as much as I can. I want to take the steering wheel and try to control that. So I think everyone who's listening, no matter whether you're an aspiring or current entrepreneur, you definitely need to make sure that you are planning out your life and get a good, clear picture, as clear as possible. We know life happens, things get thrown your way that are unpredictable, but you definitely should try your best to plan it out. Treat your life like a business and plan that whole year out. What is your takeaways for this podcast?
Yeah, and I think with the planning, I'm thinking of myself being a new entrepreneur and just kind of like what that exactly looks like. And again, like we said, just looking at what self-development you want to do. So what courses or classes or masterminds, if you will, that you want to do for yourself or for the business for the year. So looking up those, planning those out, planning events that you may want to have for your business, planning what marketing, if you want to say, okay, I want to do a summer event or I want to do a summer sale, planning those things out and just the big picture. And then once you get closer, you can kind of break those down into the actionable steps of how you're going to get that accomplished. Having a virtual assistant is definitely a great way because they can help you with planning or help you to be able for you to say, okay, this is a big idea that I want to do. Create a list of the steps. And then, I mean, this is what I've been doing for my VA. Create me, a list of those steps that's going to take us to get there and put on my CEO day what exactly I need to be doing to get us to those steps. So I think that's helpful because, I know a lot of times I probably make things more confusing or difficult than they are. Like, well, how do I make a strategy? Like, you literally just list out what you're going to do. It doesn't have to be rocket science. It's rocket science. So that's what we mean by saying planning. Like, what events you're going to go to, what events you're going to have, what maybe sales you're going to have, what new teams you may want to bring on for the year. If you want to bring on a virtual assistant, what that looks like. For sure. And then also just like you said, making sure that you're planning the time in for yourself throughout the year, so that you can remain healthy and not burnt out, having your own business and keeping your mindset fresh. So just planning those things out, I feel like is really important for yourself, and then just honing in on what you're actually planning for the year.
Yeah, that's good. So we need to talk about, because that just reminded me when it comes to our own core pillars. So we can talk about that. We won't talk about that on this one, but I'm going to write it down so I won't forget. Also, how do you plan around your core pillars? We'll talk about that the next podcast. So we may have a part 3, you guys, for 2024, which will be good because we want to make sure that we're adding value to our subscribers and our listeners. And you guys, again, this is not something we can tackle in 20 or 30 minutes. It is such a long process, but we're going to talk to you guys on the next podcast about, what did I say? We were going to talk about our goals. We haven't talked about the goals. And then we'll also talk about the core pillars on the following one. So it looks like we got a little mini series going on. And that was not the plan, but it's good because it's happening organically.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I was thinking about the podcast and our listeners, just tapping into having segments that are like actionable. What does that look like? Because like I said, someone for me gets like, well, how do I write a strategy? Like, it's really not that difficult. But just having us go through that, what it looks like for us, I feel will be helpful.
Yeah, that'll be good too. No, agreed. Just getting more practical with it and the steps when it comes to entrepreneurship. I totally agree. Well, you guys, we're starting out this 2024 with a series. It looks like a 3-part series. So the first conversation we talked to you about is how we plan our 2024. Again, you guys, as always, you can provide us with feedback. Let us know if you're enjoying these podcasts. You guys know we're trying some different things. Like Crystal is having her own segment. I am also having my own segment, and then we're coming together and we're also interviewing people. So if you find value in this, you guys, don't be stingy. Share it with your nurse colleagues or healthcare provider colleagues, because as you know, we are always providing value, and it is our goal to give more than we receive and to be who we needed when we were starting as entrepreneurs, you guys. Until next time, take care. Bye.